Hi, everyone.
I'm
Can't
on
you
mute.
press the mute button?
Oh wait,
Now
wait.
you
I got
press
it.
it.
I can do this. I can do this to myself. You're on mute.
Happy flow day.
Happy flow
Okay,
day.
Louise, you have to make a scene that has all three people of us.
Luis has a scene. He's waiting for you to do your intro.
That's
Oh,
what I
okay, I
was
was just
waiting
checking.
for.
Just make. Okay, I'll just check in. I'll just check in.
All
Don't
right,
worry.
I'll be back.
Before George starts yelling at us. Hey, George, happy flow day.
Happy flow
Hey
day. Happy
Maggie.
flow
All right,
day.
guys. We're gonna run fast because Kate has a thing to do after
We have an
this, and
hour. We
I
have a whole
also have to
hour.
record.
Woo.
But you know what to do. If you guys have questions, please drop it in the chat. We're going to do kind of a special recap episode. And I have jet lag, or I don't know, I wouldn't call it jet lag, but my brain is
Yeah.
definitely not back yet. My brain is on some different
I
shit.
saw your brain downstairs. You left it here.
I think I left it at your house. Yeah, it's by the coffee
It's
machine.
by the coffee machine. Yeah, that's a good place
Hey,
for it.
make sure what's Scarlett's guinea pig name? Don't eat it. Cash.
Cash.
Make sure
Yeah.
Cash doesn't eat my brain like an apple. Anyway, gang. So we're gonna get in. This is gonna be a lot of fun. I love these type of episodes, and yeah. So you know what to do. If you're brand new around here, please let us know, and let's just get it started. So let's count it out. Let me take a sip of this here, Waddy. This 40 water. Man,
All right,
why they
I'm
start
playing with all
making
of
water
Matt's things
in
today, so
cans?
subscribe.
I don't know if I'm a fan of water in cans. It's just weird.
It is a little bit weird. I'm with you. I left my water.
It
I'll
is
pretend.
volcanic water though, which I'm kind of understand. Like, wouldn't water basically evaporate in a volcano? Anyway,
You would, you would
so
think.
there's
Steam.
that.
It's just
All
steam.
right,
It's steam
it's
in
just
a can.
steam. Oh my God, we'll have a whole conversation about the steam at Liz's house. That was too
Hmm.
funny. Caleb and Liz had to yell at the fire department. Anyway, counting it down in five, four. Aloha, Flow Riders, and welcome to this edition of the Flow. I am hanging out today with my awesome co-host. Hey,
Hey
Katie.
everyone, it's Katie.
Yo, this is exciting. This is exciting. So today we're gonna do something a wee bit special.
Yep.
Hold on. We're gonna start all over again. I am sorry. Luis is gonna kill me. I didn't press record.
Oh, I
Actually,
didn't
let's
either.
all
One
swear
sec.
in. That's right. We were
There
busy,
we
so
go. We were so distracted. Okay, here we go.
Yo,
give your hand.
look, I just okay.
There we go.
Now we're good. Now we're good. Okay, counting it down in five. Aloha, Flow Riders, and welcome to this edition of The Flow. I am your co-host, Doc Rock, along with my awesome co-host.
Hey everyone, it's Katie.
Everyone is kidding. It's still good. We got a special edition of The Flow today. We just came back from Podfest. I call it Pod Freeze, but that's a whole different subject. Because
True story.
I went to Florida and HE double hockey sticks froze over because it snowed. So
Hmm.
there is that. All right, so let's dive in. Let's get into it. We're gonna bring on our producer Luis because he was
Yes.
also there hanging out with us, and then yeah, we'll just get to it. Hey, Luis.
Yeah. And so we should back up and say, just for, I think most of you have been are fans of the show and are part of our Flow Rider crew, but if you are not, or you're popping in, or you're just listening to this as your first episode, we the three of us and some awesome other partners in crime just got back from Podfest, which is a huge um podcasting event that brings together podcasters from all over the world and from every possible industry and from all levels, from those who are like, I think I might want a podcast, to those who have been podcasting for 20 plus years. So it was a really incredible event. We built out a entire podcasting studio space that we called Unstuck Studios, because Doc and Mary Lou have an incredible show all about how to get unstuck, creators unstuck. And so yeah, it was a great experience. And I just want to say, as someone who is mid-level technical, I'm gonna own my mid-level technical ability. I was really relieved to have both Doc and Luis there, because we definitely had some tech challenges on the first day. So it was great to be able to work through those and get those solved.
That is so true. Oh my God. I so but man, I don't want to skip way, way, way ahead, but I definitely would say one of the cool things that came out about those technical challenges
Hmm.
is it showed what Find Your Calm, Sulfur X,
Yep.
keep going. And
Yep.
we were able to do that with a
Yep.
combination of Ken, Luis, Alicia, yourself, myself. I'm gonna do myself, me, whatever. Anyway, the fact that we came up with a whole game plan and then it just worked and everybody was about that life. So, it
Yeah.
was really cool.
Yeah. And what we
Execution
should
was key.
say, execution was key. Absolutely. Wait, so what bogged us down, just
I
in case,
executed those
because
burgers in that bar down the street.
that's the important part, right? Work hard, play hard. That's what I'm
Hmm.
a big believer of. What ended up happening was, so Doc and team have done this setup before. I wasn't there for Podcast Summit last July. And at that event, what was really cool was that, so as many of you know, what's neat about Ecamm is that you can connect just about any piece of tech to it to be able to use in your production. But what people really liked in that event was that you could just plug your phone in and use your phone as a camera, which is probably, for most of us, the best possible camera we have at hand, literally at hand and ready to go. So that was our plan for this event, was just to be able to have phones ready, so that phone stands ready, so that people could just see how easy it was to connect their phone in and be able to use it. And Doc and Luis were both like, we should also have camo ready to go and installed in case people, because continuity camera can cause
Yeah,
issues
Eden.
sometimes. Right? Yeah. Huge thank you to Eden for helping us get set up. And what we didn't expect, because there's always something you do not expect or think of, is that the rented MacBooks that we chose and brought in, and the team installed Ecamm on all of them and set everything all up. They had some kind of, I don't know, issue of some sort that wouldn't allow the phones to connect in. So there was
They
all
were
these like
two
weird security
different
issues.
there are two different issues of the M2 MacBook Pros, and some of them were on Sonoma, and the other
Yep.
ones were on whatever the heck the new thing is that we're using now. Why do my brain not know that we're talking? What is it called now? It's not called Sonoma. Sequoia.
Oh,
There you
I
go.
was gonna say
So
S
yeah,
something. It's a forest.
man, for me as a Mac guy, not to just pull Sequoia out of my head, I am definitely
Yeah,
on the wrong time zone
you're on the
because I
wrong time
normally can
zone.
get that. So yeah, the ones that were on Sonoma kind of just worked, and the ones that were on Sequoia didn't. So they were
Yeah.
kind of like, sort of half. But Louise had the brilliant idea. Hey, call Eden. So I was like, yeah, let's call Eden. So I just called her right then, and I was like, yo, Eden, listen up. This is what we need. And she was like, okay, cool. And then we did it. The best part about the camo setup, Eden is a legend. That was the
What's the
best. Every
password?
time I had to type it in, every time I had to type it in, Eden is a legend. I'm cracking up laughing. I was like, this girl, this is my homie right here. This is why we get along.
Yeah, she's
But
Ecamm
But
fam.
yes, it was
so a
great.
couple
It was
things
so
I
great.
want to call out though about, because I think that this is like hopefully helpful for you, whether or not you are a podcast from home person, or you are on the road, or you're at an event, or you are building out like a podcasting studio somewhere else. It What was really smart, and what I'm always so like grateful to the team for being on top of, is that we actually intentionally brought less stuff this time, right? We were renting a lot of stuff. We had this like very simple setup. We had done it before. So it was a tried and true. We knew what worked that time. We replicated that. But Doc and I and Louise all still, because we are pros, we filled our bags with some small cameras just in case, right? Like just in case someone had a question about OBSBot cameras, which we use all the time, right? They're tiny, right? Some of them are literally called tiny. We threw those into the bag so that we would have those just as a backup and to be able to show them off at our demo station, which was separate from the event. What ended up happening was it was way easier for us, because we had built in that contingency plan, to just set up the booths with these cameras. So we were able to have those cameras as an option, and people loved getting to ask questions about
Loved them.
different kinds of cameras. Luis had his
Everybody
whole
was like, "What is
setup.
that little thing? What is this little thing? Does that
Yeah.
little thing look this good?" And we are like, "Yeah, actually, you're using the Me Too right now, right?"
Yeah, I'm using the Meet 2 right now. And as we were doing this event, OBSBot had just released the Meet SE and the Tiny SE, which are even cheaper versions of the cameras that we are using. And that's not to say, so like, again, Ecamm works with all of these different things, and some people were still able to connect their phones and use their phones, but it was a little bit more difficult than we expected, right? Some people wanted to be able to test out the different cameras. Some people wanted to be able to understand how camo worked, and we were able to provide all of it to people, and with still a pretty minimal setup. So it's I I the more I spend time with Doc and Luis, and the more that I do these kinds of things, I'm actually starting to like the tech challenges or the things that go wrong, because I'm still not great. I was definitely the most stressed because I just wanted to close the door, solve the problem, and then reopen the door rather than just get it fixed. And Doc is like, no, we'll just fix it. But it's in those moments where you kind of force yourself through those situations and see what everyone's different, solutions are, and work through it, that the next time you're going to know what to do in that case. And so, like, if we're not in those situations, we don't know how to deal with those situations. So it's important. I think it's incredibly important to sort of remain calm. And no one thought we were less professional because we
Nope.
had tech challenges and worked through them. Everyone raved about the overall experience
They
in the
liked
studio.
it.
Yeah.
In a way, I think they liked it. Okay, so let's wrap this around one of Doc's weird analogies, because this is what I do. Back in the day, you know what Subaru commercial would be like? Here's a scene: wet, icy road, ambulance, police cars,
Mm.
and then they show the back of the ambulance, and there's the mom and the baby safe in the back of the ambulance, just basically checking vitals. And the dad is like, "Thank God it was a Subaru."
Hmm.
Right? What make look, anybody can get anti-lock brakes, anybody can get airbags, anybody can get heated seats. Oh, trust you me, I was in love with heated seats this weekend. Always thought they were stupid. I live in Hawaii. Like, who the hell needs to heat their ass? I tell you what, I needed it when it was 18 degrees in Florida, bro.
Hmm.
But when you see that safety after a crisis, that triggered a lot of people to know that Subaru was a very well constructed vehicle,
Yep.
especially because it doesn't race in the top, off the top of the tongue situations like your Chevys, your Buicks, so forth. So I didn't say Buick, but you know what I mean. So for people to see a challenge and see us undo that challenge right there and do it calmly and smoothly, I think that makes them feel like, wow, it was really easy to solve this problem. So sometimes a lot of our guys under this perfectionism thing are trying to hide from the mistakes. I think it's better, and I always let people see mine and they see me solve the mistakes so they can see how easy it is, because no one cares what the software does when it's working. How do you make it come back to life when it's not working?
Hmm.
Right? And so when I worked at Apple, when we had really, really easy repairs, I would tell the guys, do it on the bar and not in the genius room. And they were like, why? Because I want people to see how fast we do it so they have trust in what we're doing. When you go off into that little secluded room in the back and there's a steel door with a combination lock, it's a little like, what are they doing with my thing back there? So I would often swap hard drives or change top cases, the keyboard thing, right on the desk at the Genius Bar so people can be like, oh, that's what it looks like
Yeah.
inside. And they would be so excited and they would see me vacuum out the cat hairs and everything. And it gave them a certain feel and deeply connected them with the brand. So don't be afraid of your mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually
Absolutely.
like the fact that each challenge is like a puzzle. So, like it's like a jigsaw that you're trying to figure out and you're trying to see how everything goes. And once
Hmm.
you fix it, you get that sense of satisfaction, which is really cool, but also for the people that were there experiencing to see that as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
100%. You know what was really cool, Luis? Again, it had to do with the whole concept of solving on the fly. And like Katie said, we all had our additional cameras and things with us. One thing which kind of blew my mind, and I think is also part of the problem as well. We don't really know exactly what was the problem, but I think another thing that was part of the problem, I'm very, very finicky about my USB cables and USB adapters,
Hmm.
and the brand that I normally use was out of stock. So I got an additional brand what looks very similar. It seemed like they were the same thing. They're not, right? So I use either JS Aux or South Sun. Really weird names, but they just work. And I think that maybe even the adapters, because Luis had mentioned this, that the telephone adapter wasn't as legit as the ones we got at camp, which I
Mhm.
bought directly from you, Lonzy.
Mm.
So that also could have been part of the problem. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah,
And
but
oh my God,
problems
go
cause
ahead.
solutions, right? Because
Yep.
what I
Yes,
feel that we learned in this one was me being able to do both. I was there at Podcast Summit in Atlanta and
Mhm.
now in Orlando, that we spent a good 10, maybe 15 minutes connecting people's phones, like actually walking them through that process before we were able to hit record. But once we kind of figured out the problem that the cables or the connectors were giving us issues and we went to the cameras, it became a much more like churn and burn type of process where
Yeah.
people were just able
Yeah, it
to
was
hop into a
faster.
booth and just say press
yeah.
record, and as soon as you're done we're airdropping the files back to you so you can walk away with your first ever
That part
podcast.
blew people's mind.
And that's
You
what
know, like you
made the
mean I can get the
difference.
files right now? Absolutely. Here you go. Brrr. And they're like, oh
Yep.
my God, this is so cool. I wanted to say two things. Number one, I see Andrew Moon came to visit us, and we
I know
just
we
missed him, but
missed
Luis
you.
saw
Yeah.
him, which was super
Yes.
cool. Thank you, Mooney. Good to see you, brother. And Eden said, I used to get nervous, but hanging out with doctors helped me reframe my mindset. Each
Yeah.
bump in the road is a great experience and proof to myself that I can problem solve on the go. I want to highlight this, Eden. And the reason for this is I was talking sort of after action with Alicia in our gold training group this weekend, and I had said to her what was like her biggest takeaway from doing the event with us, and she said, "I know more than I thought I knew," and I just love that
Yep.
because it's so easy to sell yourself short when you're doing these things. And Brandon and I were just fighting about imposter syndrome like an hour ago on the call. I'm like, bro, you're not trying to be somebody else, and you ain't sick, so stop saying that crap. But it does come from this feeling that we all get sometimes. Like, am I going to be able to do this? Do I really know how?
Yep.
And then sometimes the only way to do it is to put yourself in a situation where you can actually do what you need to do. And one of my trainings when I was in the army is we'd be doing practice missions and going along, and they would purposely throw curves in the road to see how you problem solve because those things come up in the real, conflict, right? So they would
Mhm.
just do random things like, wet the roads or put oil slick on the road, come no kitty litter. Like, how you guys going to get through this problem in this particular situation? Or they would sneak up behind us and steal all the ammo and be like, okay, now what you going to do? And so those things really do help. And as much as people practice things in their situation, you should ask yourself, what happens if I'm live and the mic drops out? What are you going to do? I know what I'm going to do. I have a backup USB mic right here. Always. Somewhere I could just grab another mic and go to town, right? What are you going to do if your camera all of a sudden flips out? I got backup camera right here, sitting on the desk, ready to go. So what are some of your other options should you run into a problem, right? And you have to solve for X. So there you go. Thank you, Stevie. Good to see you here, brother.
And
Um,
just to add
it,
to
it's
that,
it's funny. I don't know the right response to thank you for your service, but I know everybody means it when they say it. But then I always feel like,
Just you're welcome.
I did it because I was trying to go to college for free. But thank you. I appreciate it though.
well, I was just gonna add to that, Doc, because I actually had one of my channel members mention this to me, that one of the things that they value the most when they watch me do my lives is the fact that whenever I do come across a problem, I show them real time how I, like take care of that problem and never get flustered in the fact, right? Like microphone drops out, don't think that the whole show's over. Just grab your backup, put it on, and as soon as you go, you're good, continue the show. So that's one thing that was mentioned to me recently, which is I think very important to always demonstrate.
Yes, I do say, Katie, as much as you can go into your Katie mode, you actually are much better at it now as the experience comes from show to show to show, right?
Yeah.
Like the ability to stay calm and say, you know what, I think we got this. Let's just do so and so and so. And so, how do you think you've been able to get better at it?
I mean, honestly, just going through it. So it's and going through it with people around me, and I don't always mean like on the show or in the event with me, but there are go-to people that I know I can watch their content, call them, text them, jump in a chat with them, whatever, to ask like how to do something or to get advice on how I could have done something different on the other side, right? So it's just that it's the act of going through it, and inevitably we're all going to go through it if we're in this video production space, right? Whether you're live streaming, you're recording, or whatever, there's a mic that's going to fail, you're going to you're going to be on mute, a guest going to call in. Stevie was saying in the comments here, like he's got an echo or some audio feedback that is popping up, right? Like it you're going to have to go through it, and then you're going to have to stay calm as you can, figure out how you can solve it, understand at what point you might not be equipped yet to solve it, and know like what your contingency plan is. So like if I'm alone on a stream and I've tried the things that I know that might solve it and nothing is working, like I will at that point now call that and say, hey, I'm having this kind of issue. I'm going to I want to respect everyone's time. I'm going to reschedule this, or I'm going to release this later. Thank you so much for all your patience. And then I know who the people are that I'm going to reach out to and say, hey, this happened. I tried XYZ thing. Please walk me through like what you would have done differently or what you think, so that you need to understand what the solution is, but you also need to understand what the troubleshooting process is. And I don't think there's a good way to learn that other than going through it, picking up some tips, and also having a conversation afterwards to diagnose what you did, whether or not that was the right thing to do, or there's other recommendations. And you need to pick up those people in your space that can talk that through with you. So instead of being like, I tried everything and I can't figure out how to do it, like I've gotten better at being like, I tried this, and this specific thing, and it didn't work. What would you have done in this situation? So that someone can actually give you their advice and their help versus you coming at them with just like you're, beside yourself and you're frustrated, whatever else. And you're like, I did everything I could think of. Like, you're not going to get the help you need. You need to give the specific steps of things you tried. But all of that comes with experience. I'm now 5 years in. I spend a lot of time with Ken and Glenn and Doc and Luis and a ton of other people around me that are better at lots of things that are not my skill set that I'm learning. So it takes time. And what I wanted to ask you back, both of you, is like, what were some of the, I guess, like, what were some of the questions or the recurring themes, I guess, that you saw coming into that space as people were, popping in, other than what is this magical space? What was on the other side of what is that magical space? As people were kind of coming in the events, what were the themes that you saw over and over again that this year's event people were looking for, asking about, talking about as they were coming into the space?
You want to start that?
Yeah. I'm laughing at Stevie. Stevie's killing me in the comments. Thank you, brother. So the thing that I love the most, and it had happened several times, is okay, like I know I need to get into this video thing. I'm a little scared of, or I just don't want to do video, but my co-host is making me try it. Okay, cool. Sit down. Let me show you what we do. And so we sat him down. I had this really cute, I was going to say couple, but they're a mom and dad couple. Sorry, I take that back.
A pair.
A dad and a daughter couple.
Daughter. Yep.
And the daughter was like, bring the dad. The dad was like, Paul's vintage, maybe a little older. And he's like, I don't want to do video. It's so much harder. I feel like it's going to be a waste, blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right, don't worry, Pops. You sit down. We got you. So he sits down. And then I was like, this is all we're going to do. And I showed them my connected camera, and I used the tail air in that particular situation. And I set up the two mics, and I was like, okay, here you go. and then they started doing their interview. And so basically, they interview each other, and it's really cool concept of their show. And when it was over, the dad was like, "Wait, these are my files?" Yes. And so I can like just take this and send it to our YouTube channel. Yeah, it's ready. It's already done. Like you really don't have to edit because we went down that linear path that I showed you. And he was like, "Oh my god, that was fun. Can we do it again?" And I just thought it was the dopest thing. He came in kicking and screaming, just like Tora thinks I'm going to be about the broccoli. Not happening. But the fact that he came in kicking and screaming, and then after he was like, "That was great. I want to do it again." And I told him, I said, the number one thing that you're going to find out is that being able to see each other face to face, which is something you can do in video, it's really hard to do in audio. You are going to just have a better conversation. And he was like, "Yeah, I kind of felt that." So it was just really great. It was really great just watching people click when they
Yeah.
realize video does not have to be hard and
Yeah.
that Ecamm can simplify this process. That was cool. And now we're getting emails of this is the episode that we shot in the pods. And so I get to go watch the episode on YouTube, and the people are just having fun. To me, that was great.
I
What about you,
think
Elle?
I think when you quiet the noise, and I mean this like metaphorically as well as physically, like what was cool about those nooks is that when you were in them, it was this like quiet space. All of the tech that I think gets in the way of people creating was already done. So they could just sit down and focus on the content and the conversation and the people. And I think that really was magical and important for us to all remember that we're all metaphorically and actually getting so distracted with all the tech and all the features and all the cool things that we often forget like the actual conversation, the actual content, like what makes all of this fun. So sorry, Luis, I completely agree with what Doc said. It was cool to just see people connecting.
Yeah. Um, One thing that I noticed, which was actually before they were connecting and getting into the booth, was Alicia had mentioned this on Saturday, how many excuses people were coming up with, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
reason why I bring that up is because right away when they were first curious about what we were doing, excuse me, we explained that, hey, you can record your podcast right here on the spot. And that's what I noticed, that the excuses came up right away. Oh, like I'm not ready. I'll have to go back to the room, or I'll have to do this, or I have an event and I'm gonna get lunch. And we heard it all, but
Is that an
we kind
earthquake? Did you feel that?
Yeah.
of exactly, we heard it all. Like we're in Florida, like earthquakes, but the thing is that I also saw that what Doc saw, that some of them actually got past that, and then once they realized that it was easy, that it made the experience different. And I think that's because of what we mentioned before. We gave everybody there the experience of being on a podcast as a guest, right?
As a guest, yeah.
What, where
Yeah.
you didn't have to think about the tech or do anything, just literally sit down, record the conversation, and then it was completed. And we were able to show people how easy you can do that with Ecamm, which is what Doc was saying about like the spark in their mind, and then how they enjoyed it so much that they wanted to do it again.
You know
Yeah.
what was really cool, Ellen? You just made me think of something so much at that particular time. There was a girl named Katrina. Come to find out, her brother is actually hardcore Ecamm fam. And so her other brother and her were just at Podfest, and he was coming later. And so sounds confusing, but we're going to just use A, B, and C. So brother C is the hardcore Ecamm fam, right? And then A and B would be Katrina and her other brother, and they're just sort of new coming to check out Podfest. And they got two different podcasts that they're doing. The one who's Ecamm fam was late. He couldn't come until the last day. So she was just kind of exploring, like putting her toes in water, trying to see what she's gonna do. And I was like, listen, this is not that hard. And what you want to do, it works. And Tora, who's in our community, kind of does what you need to do. And you guys need to know each other because you guys have a similar vibe. And so she's like, okay, well, I'll think about it. No, there's no thinking. Katrina, you're going to need to go over there and sit down in the little box and do your first episode. And she was like, when? And I'm like, now. And she's like, but. I was like, no, but let's go. Let's just go in this little box and let's do this thing. So her and her brother sat down and she interviewed her brother. And then when she came out, she was like, oh my God, that was so cool. And then so I said, now listen, this was so dope. I said, you have just finish your first episode? She goes, yes. I said, I want you to go to your room today and I want you to publish this. Here's your USB key and I want you to put it up. And she goes, yes. And I go, when you came here, why did you come? She said, because I'm thinking about being a podcaster. And I was like, let me go ahead and anoint you. So I hit her
Yeah,
with the
check.
tripod on each shoulder. I was like, tap, tap. Katrina, you are a podcaster. And her brother was like, oh, you know the black people laugh, right? Ah! He just kind of did the little thing, bent over at the waist. And I was like, so now when I see you, when I walk past you in the hallway, you just got to yell at me, I'm a podcaster. And she committed. She committed, fully committed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the dopest experience, again, because she came with a plan of learning how to become a podcaster and she left a podcaster.
Yeah.
To me, that was glorious. And so I can't wait. I have her email. I'm gonna hook her up with Tora because I think they'll get along perfectly, and they do something very similar with sharing their ministry via YouTube. And this is something she's getting into. Tora's been doing it for a while. I'm like, you guys are gonna be best of friends. And I know that everyone at Ecamm Fam loves to help each other out. So I'm like, please don't be afraid. Come and just join us. And I just thought that was just super cool. That was super cool.
Yeah, I think that was like honestly the if I could pick out like a theme or like a focus for everyone, it I think people are really overthinking all of it. Like they're making it bigger than it needs to be. They're focused on like all of the details that not that the details are irrelevant, but like focus so much on the details that they've gotten away from like why they actually want to podcast and like what the content of the podcast is and how to build and grow a show. So it's, there, and especially at events, this is very easy for it to happen, right? Because you're going into all these different sessions, you're hearing all these like, cool tools and tech and workflows and ways to kind of do this whole thing that I think over and over again, all I was hearing, whether it was in the sessions that we were involved in or in the studio itself, but it was this like, like, oh, I didn't, I couldn't possibly start my show right now because like I didn't, I I don't know how to use any of this, or like I want to ask some questions about like the cameras or the tech first. It is kind of I think a crutch. It's once you start getting into it, it's like what do you actually want to work on? What is the goal of your show? And we were Doc and I were talking with Brandon Washington this morning. Shout out to Brandon. But he was saying it just super resonated with me, and I think it's exactly like where many of us are at, and also what we were seeing at this show is that like the pre-production phase of your show like is hugely important and is way more important than the production or the post-production. And especially with a tool like Ecamm, like you need to nail the pre-production, and so much of the pre-production is like content and like and play. It's not that necessarily the tech. Like you need to know your plan and what you're going to create before you even open up Ecamm, before you think about what camera you need, before you think about the microphone and all the other stuff that's going to paralyze you and like it feels really big. You need to understand like what's your vision? What is that in that, pre-planning stage? And that is very easy to get, flustered and to feel like you and to let all the perfectionism in, right? It's like, oh well, I can't start until XYZ thing, and like it. But if you can nail that pre-production space, again, especially if you're using Ecamm, it goes a really long way. So what was cool was I think we actually hit our goal of creating this space of unsticking people, and Doc was doing this in his presentation too, of like, okay, like stop lying to yourself and stop lying to us. What are the things that are getting in your way of doing it? And almost all of them were in this like pre-production space where it's like, oh well, I need for it to be like perfect, or I don't know what tools to use, or I don't know what tech to use, or I've signed up for everything and now I'm like beside myself and I have no time. I have no budget. Like all of these things could be solved in that phase if you could just like focus down and stop kind of making things bigger than they are.
100%. And you know what's funny, and I feel about this is just kind of hilarious in the fact that, like you said, most of the people were semi triggered on something that seemed scary to them, but they hadn't actually done it yet They just heard other people complain about it.
Yeah.
So they adapted. Okay, how does the easiest way to explain this? I swear to you, this happened when the commercial came out about this medicine for restless leg syndrome. All of a sudden, people are like, "I think I got restless leg syndrome." I'm like, "No, you don't." Right? There was another commercial that came up about like some other thing, and people was like, "I think I have this." I'm like, "No, you don't. You're watching that commercial, Sky Rizzy or whatever the heck those commercials are."
The worst.
And this happens a lot in content creating because if you go on the live or you go on the internet and you watch other people complain about something that they just didn't do their homework, but they might be of some position of prominence. And this was my talk about you, Connor, and Jeff on the other day. Connor was saying stuff that I'm like, Connor, you're making the problem worse by telling people something they haven't tried it yet. So I know you're coming from a good intention, but please don't have that conversation because you're going to give people a thought that they don't actually have yet. And then once you tell them, you can't make it go away. And how many nights I had to sit in a room because I cracked the joke about monsters under the bed once to Emma. And then my punishment was, now you got to stay your butt in here until she fall asleep because you're the idiot that brought up monsters under the bed. Prior to that, she's never scared of the dark. She's not scared of anything. Most fearless kid ever. Me and my stupid jokes one day made me have to sit there and watch her go to sleep for like a year.
Yep.
Until I could prove to her that there's no monsters under the bed. So be careful of adopting other people's weird idiosyncratic behaviors because they're just not there. And so Katie is dead solid right about that.
Or duplicating their setups. Like if you want to talk tech, what was incredible about this event and actually echoed into Doc the amazing work you did with Liz. So shout out to Liz Wilcox and our Content Launchpad winner. A lot of cool video footage coming your way soon in that. But what was a nice thread that echoed through to that is because we actually were trying to get rid of a lot of the tech and only have people connect with their phones to show them like how simple it can be. And then that went wrong, as we said. We had these like really simple we had these really simple webcams from ObSpot, right? So we have, and they're small and they're really affordable, etc. And so what ended up actually being really funny was we got the same result from these smaller webcams because people were coming in and they were like, "Oh, I have the Sony ZV-E10 or I have the like whatever, mirrorless camera." And like, but they're not like Luis. They're not taking the time to actually learn the nuances of the camera. And then they're looking at this, like literally it's like this big, tiny camera. And they're like, well, like, what is that? I was like, well, that's a 4K, a webcam. And they're like, oh, and then they sit down and they're like, oh, like I'm getting like the picture quality of that one in Ecamm is like the same as what I'm getting out of my Sony. And it's like, yep. But like, so you went out and spent a whole bunch of money on this like very expensive camera. And really like some of it is understanding how the tech works, but some of it is just being I don't want to say tricked, but like you see what other people are doing. And so you think you need those ingredients in order to be successful. And you don't. There are people who are creating with all different kinds of stuff. So so I think it was good to be able to show that like you don't need the most expensive possible studio. You don't need all of these different things. Like we popped up in a conference. So it's like noisy, busy, internet sucks, not enough plugs, like, all of these things that went wrong. And we were still able to help people record their shows. So I think it was interesting to see that they could see the different cameras and the different gear. And they're like, and again, the most affordable of Shure microphones. And they were like, this sounds amazing. We're like, yep, this is the quote unquote cheapest one on their line. You can pull off a lot with a little, like you're overthinking all of these tech pieces. And it carried through to Liz's, right? Because Liz was saying like, I don't want all the most expensive things. Like I want what works for me. I want what's going to be what works in my space and in my studio. And like, so I need you, Doc, to give me recommendations on what is going to work for my needs. Here they are. So like, shout out to people like Liz who are like, I get me. And here's what I need for my space.
So here's something really cool. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, introducing Jill Roberts, brand new community manager at Ecamm.
Woo!
she has something really cool to say. She goes, a phrase that teachers hate hearing over and over again, but it's still helpful is remember your why. Staying
Yep.
focused on your purpose and not getting stuck in details. And I think that's super, super important because there are people who feel like they need to do a podcast because everybody keeps telling them, but they're
Hmm.
not necessarily understanding the why. And if you just do it for the sake of doing it, it's not going to come out really what you want. It just will. It will miss a whole bunch of the feels. But if you understand why you're doing it, what your purpose is, what value you're bringing to your community, it definitely makes things a heck of a lot easier.
Hmm.
So, I think one other thing that Podfest really really brought to light is the amount of people who are realizing that this video thing, A, is a lot simpler than it looks, and B, there's a lot to it. Now, we're still at a weird catch 22, and I got to say this because we've talked about this on this show before. We've talked a lot about the standard issue RSS feed,
Hmm.
and I understand why the OGs are so stuck on RSS feed because they need those data from Podtrack in order for them to go and sell advertisements on their
Mm.
show.
Yep.
And so what happens is you can take a look at your downloads. But what kind of broke last year and well, sort of the year before, but carried over into last year, is we realize now that even with a company like Podtrack, podcast statistics are heavily flawed.
Hmm.
So, for instance, I could subscribe to the Eden and Jill podcast. It's gonna be an epic show, and I'm about this life, so I'm all up in there, and I watched like 5, 6 episodes in a row. I am super, super stoked. Life happens. I get busy. My phone is still downloading that episode, and because I love them so much, my computer is downloading that episode. My Apple TV is downloading that episode. I have 2 iPhones, 2 iPads, 6, 7 Macs, and theoretically I could be responsible for 10 downloads. But I
Yep.
ain't watched none of them because I got busy doing something else. So download stats are basically BS. Listen stats are basically BS because sometimes I'll listen to the show 2, 3, 4 times, but if I already downloaded it, you no longer know that I'm listening. You only get to know I listened when I fire and listen to the whole episode when connected with this one particular app. So, YouTube blows every other metric out the water combined. So, if we added Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Skitcher, Twitcher, Blitzer, Bleezer, Squeezer, iHeartRadio, I Hate Radio, whatever, if we add all of those up together, those do not equal the amount of people that are on YouTube. And the majority of the YouTube watching is happening on televisions.
Yep.
So if guys could get over that old school mentality and figure out a better way to get companies to sponsor your show. So when, for instance, when we go to sponsor B Wash's show, we ask him how much downloads you get. We don't care. That's not a real metric anyway. That's a vanity metric. But we're still trying to teach the purchasers of advertisements and teach podcasters how to have these conversations without a bunch of numbers that don't mean anything. And anybody who's old school advertising, I remember the newspaper used to come to us at our store and be like, "We want to put you on the back cover of the Sunday entertainment circular." Because although we have 150,000 subscribers, more like 400,000 people see it. Why is that?
Hmm.
Because it's always upside down on the table and everybody that walks by sees the back of it. And we're like, man, get out of here with that mess. Like, that's really the stuff that they used to try to tell us. And so, in a podcasting space, 2 things you need to know. Number one, put an advertisement in your show, even if your advertisement is only you, because it opens up the idea and the concept that you are open to sponsorships.
Hmm.
So in my YouTube videos, I go, this video is sponsored by me. I'm Doc Pops. I'm the inventor. Like, I just say that in my thing. And that's so that if anybody else comes to me, if Ozbot or Elgato or somebody says, hey, man, we want you to make a sponsored video, they would know that I'm open to it. I'm going to tell them no, but that would be open. And then, second of all, you are telling your brain that you're ready to accept those.
Mm-hmm.
And know that the RSS stats and that kind of stuff, don't get so caught up in trying to learn all of that. It's probably not going to matter for much longer because YouTube will bury everyone. This is my prediction. You do what you want, but so far I've been right. So I've been right for 3 years solid. So just skip everything else and focus on YouTube. That's the best advice I can tell you. I do not want you to come to me in 2029. Go, damn son, I should have listened to you, and I'm a moonwalk right up in your face, busted knee and all. I'm a moonwalk and be like, told you.
I love it. I think you're absolutely right. And I think what's kind of cool about it right now anyway, and things will shift and change obviously as we move forward, but again, if you start with YouTube, everything else in the podcast like workflow is super easy. like I really really easy. You literally just drag that file over and then it goes out to all the other, but like the checking the box on the other stuff is like barely even a step. So if you set it up for YouTube first, optimize it for YouTube however you want, focus on the audience on YouTube, and all the other stuff is just an echo of that and gets you additional bonus points, and it's so easy to do. Like honestly, I did it this morning for my own podcast. I dragged the file to my podcast host, dropped it in, and I duplicated the description and the title from YouTube. It's optimized easily for both because I planned it out that way and sent it off. And like that's so much easier than trying to do it completely one way for audio, do it completely a different way for video, thinking about YouTube as an afterthought. Like start with YouTube. Just start there. And then everything else is easier. It's literally why we built this show.
You said that key word. You said the key word, which is afterthought. Because to everybody else, so many people are still struggling trying to figure out how to get Facebook Lives to work.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, to everybody but YouTube, the video aspect is an afterthought. It's the side salad. YouTube does video.
Yep.
That's it. Period, point blank. So that's why you should be YouTube first. That gets me super, super hyped. I want to say Rich has a fantastic idea, and this is sort of what we do as well. Rich said, I always say, Ecamm and Captivate, so that way you can get the affiliate hookups. Yes, just pick some of the stuff that you're affiliated with and be like, if you want to support the show and you are interested in buying some Kyler's Hawaiian beef jerky, click this link. And for right now until Wednesday, use the code $8 a bag. And you can get them toys for $8 a bag.
I've already bought so much.
Ordered mine. They're on their way.
No, I just sent the link to Jeff. I was like, Jeff, and he goes, yeah, I got the email too. So I ordered mine because $8 a bag, bro. That's cheap.
plus one for beef chips. Yeah.
Right. Next we're gonna be like, this show is sponsored by Matt Haas wood signs for your podcast.
They are so fun.
Woodsigns.com. That's not a real thing.
I'm not sponsored at all by them, but I am loving them. They're so fun. I just want them in everything. They're scattered around my desk right now. Yep.
I need Matt to make me some special ones with like a blurred out finger.
Yeah. I know.
With the blurred out finger, that's funny.
Yeah. Put like the acrylic, just like scratch the acrylic up so it's blurry, and then just like hold it in the front. Be like, here's a blurred out finger for you.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think like the thing, it's again, if you can turn off the noise and focus on what makes like on your passion, which hopefully is the content and yourself and the show and your community, and don't like, and then bring that in, that same vibe into what you're doing with advertising. Like start with the products and the things that you love, and rather than reaching out and starting off with some like huge ask of them, just start adding them in as a sponsor and talk about why you love them. Do what Rich is doing, build it in with an affiliate program. That's going to give you a proof point down the road to be able then to send it over to them and say like, you're already a sponsor of my show. Here are the cool things that, that I've been doing. Here are some examples of ads. That's a much easier conversation anyway. And it gets you in the habit and it gives you credibility. It's very smart. Again, like if you can come at this from doing it for yourself first across the board, Like you will enjoy it more. You will like turn off all the things that everyone else is telling you to do and focus on, focus on you and on your show and on the content. And then you'll start being able to grow and figure out what those next things are.
Yeah.
One
That's
last
it.
thing to add
Right.
to it, which
Yeah,
is
go for it.
the thing that I noticed mostly with people is that they were a bit timid to be on camera. And
Oh
the
yeah.
one thing that I was like using the tool or the phrase to kind of break that away from them at the Podfest was I would just ask them, is body language a real thing? And they would all say yes. And I go, so if you were not to do video, why would you deprive your audience about half of your, conversation? Because
Yeah.
the spoken word is one thing, but there's so many times where we emphasize, with our facial expressions or ask a question and add a pause, right? And that same aspect can't be done through audio. So that was one of the cool things that I was able to see, like, and help people get over their fear of going on video for their podcast for the first time. So that was a lot of fun.
It's
Yeah.
funny you say
Yeah.
that.
I go ahead.
I've been listening to the Tony and Ryan show. I've been talking about this a bunch with poor Doc, who's been humoring me. But they do that, Luis. Like they will do, and sometimes I'm listening to the audio because I'm cleaning or doing whatever, and they'll do a pause, and I like immediately like it's long enough that I like look down and think I've paused the episode. And then I'm like, oh, now I want to like go to watch the video because I want to see
Yep.
like their facial reactions because they're just
Mm-hmm.
like obviously in that moment of silence and audio they're reacting in video. And so it actually has become a trigger that like now every time I hear them do that and I'm in audio, I'm like, oh, screw this. I need to get over to the video and watch it. So it's actually like a smart way to get your audio audience like over is those moments where we're also worried about like making sure that the audio people aren't missing anything in the video, but I think it could be a really cool teaser too. So yeah,
I like that. That's a
great.
Closing
pattern
out real
interrupt now.
quick.
Yeah.
You brought something in the Jeff interview, which was really good,
Oh, yeah.
Katie. You mentioned that if you're an audio person, you're trying to make the transition to video, you
Yeah.
don't have to do your whole show. You can just do like video pop-ups here and there to sort of get your audience sort of used to that vibration. So I'm really, really loving that concept.
Yeah.
And I think maybe we should do like an episode on like how to do the slow transition or I don't know if it's safe. I don't know if safe is the right word, but on basically how to do some pop-ups just to get your audience used to you being live.
Yeah, or like so one that I've been thinking about a lot, and again, this is totally stolen from Tony and Ryan, but so their show is just it's like a news show, a daily show where they just talk and banter, which I love. But they do a live stream just for their members where they like will do like a craft night. They're like, everyone bring a drink and a craft project, and we're all just going to be like hanging out live together and crafting, and you can ask questions, etc. So like again, the video element doesn't have to be your show topic even or concept. Like if you're someone like Matt where you're into a whole bunch of stuff, like your day-to-day show could be like, Matt answers questions about Gen X, and then like your video element could be like my community is all going to watch a movie together. Like it doesn't have to necessarily match up. Again, I think we're overthinking a lot of it. It's the video element is the engaging, interesting element. So the video element could absolutely be something special for your viewers. And then maybe that becomes a segment. Maybe it rolls out that you actually do convert your whole show over. It doesn't have to for you to check the box and be all these formats are all blending together, I think, more and more as we go forward. So live and recorded, Zoom and YouTube, like, audio and video, it's all kind of coming together in really clever, interesting ways. So it's watch the space
Yeah,
and
the
don't
main
be
thing
afraid
is
to
don't
test and
panic
play.
and don't get
Yep.
overcomplicated. Like if you don't panic and don't get overcomplicated and understand that you got this, and you know what? If it fails, nobody dies. It's not that big a deal. You're not a pilot, bro. You're doing a show on the internet. If it fails miserably, you can delete that episode. I like to
Yep.
leave them so that I can point people to my f ups, so that way they can feel comfortable about themselves. You're doing the world a favor even if it doesn't come off clean, because you're letting other people know that it's okay. So we got to tighten this joint up because Katie has a thing and I have a thing, and I don't know what the heck Luis is gonna do. Play with nephew.
Luis has got a thing.
Yeah. I have things.
We
Things,
got
yeah.
things. So, like we talked about before, this show is brought to you by Captivate. Captivate is the platform that we love to use for this particular show. I use all of the various platforms, but one of the things I really, really do enjoy about Captivate is how they do have a growth mindset. So, if you're trying to grow your podcast, go and check them out over at captivate.fm. There you go. And then, oh yeah, don't forget to check out flow.ecamm.com. This is on Podpage, but if you go and check us out, you can leave us a voicemail, you can leave us a review, you can ask a question, or you can just see all the episodes. So if you want to get your podcast where podcast getting is got, go over and check out flow.ecamm.com. Chee-hoo!
And we're going to be
Yo,
back again next week. I overplanned and totally confused my weeks, but I will wrap by saying that we are not a perfect podcast, as I'm sure none of you is a surprise to no one. So we are also implementing the things we're learning at events like this, and we're getting better, 1% better every single time. So we're doing a lot more on the production side and getting a lot more organized. We'll be adding in, different ads and things are upcoming. But next week we're going to talk all about intros and outros. So yeah, get ready for that fun content. But we actually know what next week's episode is, which is new for us. So there you go. Join us
we're
next week
getting
for
better.
all things intros and outros. We appreciate all your questions. Help fuel us to learn more and dive deeper and figure it out and apply it to our own content. So we really appreciate everyone.
I'm laughing at Linda. Paul, I'm glad you're here to support this awesome group of herded cats.
Cats.
with
Yeah.
with that one, Linda. And thank you, Paul. Flow Riders, out.
Out.